Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Earthen's Den. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about change part 2. I think I'm probably going to do a mini series on this because this topic in itself is super heavy. So first and foremost, I just want to thank everybody for rocking with me. It's almost been a year since I've been on this podcast and I've been consistent. And I'm so thankful for the people that I've reached and those who listen in and just kind of tune into this podcast. So shout out to you guys. Anyways, I think one of the things that I have definitely noticed with so many people, and this is definitely something that's very prevalent today, I feel like now more than ever, because we don't really know the difference between, we have a hard time deciphering between what's real and what's fake, and it's definitely coming from a space of just kind of being fed this reality TV and the social media and the images and things like that. So it makes this kind of hard. But I remember being, like I said, somebody who didn't trust, and this is true. This is definitely true. I think that there are definitely many people who are in the world, which we all know, and they definitely have different agendas. And, it really kind of comes down to values. You know what I mean? And I definitely think anytime you're in a space with people who don't share the same values as you and who don't really understand you, I think so many people don't seek understanding. I think that's why it's just, so many people lack just knowledge. You know what I mean? It just is what it is. But one of the things that I've definitely noticed with a lot of people is people who lack understanding, they're so quick to rely on their own opinions. And, anything that's new, it's kind of that's going to be put in a different category, right? This isn't like us. This isn't something that we've seen before. So 9 times out of 10, we're going to discard it and we're going to treat it a certain type of way. And I think something that I realized with a lot of people too is we have this capacity to really dehumanize one another. And it's we do this thing where we're don't worry about that hurt your feelings. You got to be strong. And I think one of the things that I noticed about so many people is that so many people claim to be something that they're not. You have so many people who claim to be so strong, but on the inside, they're so weak. You know what I mean? And so I think in life, just in general, when it comes to trust, it's about trusting yourself and it's about being discerning, and it's about knowing, is this person who they really say they are? Because I think that it's just a lot of deception, you know what I mean? And the people who typically, dehumanize one another and say all these things you just got to let that roll off your shoulders. Why would I let that roll off my shoulders? What you just said was messed up. You know what I mean? Especially being a person who cares. It's I've never really been the type of person to not say that I didn't care when I know I cared. You know what I mean? And that's why I'm saying for me, man, it's I don't really compare myself to an extent because I've always been alone. So I really did have just that self-actualization within myself. You know what I mean? And I've never been the type of person to say I didn't care when I really cared. Now, when I didn't care, I didn't care. You know what I mean? But I can't understand why we do that to one another. And, we wonder why so many people are suicidal, why so many people, anxiety is at an all-time high, why so many people are on these drugs and, people in the psych ward. It's because we just dehumanize one another. We don't even know what it's like to really connect with people anymore. You know what I mean? We've lost all sense in regards to just values, beliefs, morale, the whole nine. You know what I mean? The whole nine is I don't even think people realize just how upside down they are. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, this is just from my own observation. And no, I'm never sitting on a space where I'm just at this high place. And you know what I mean? That's never what I'm about. But what I'm just, speaking from my own personal experience, And so this kind of goes back to trust. And what I'm saying overall was you got to learn how to trust God. And that's really just kind of what it boils down to, because when it comes to people, you really can't control people. You know what I mean? What people do and what they say. So many people are emotionally just ignorant and negligent. You know what I mean? They don't even know why they don't like you. They don't even have a valid reason as to why they don't like you. You know what I mean? And then I know with women, we have this struggle where we really struggle with trusting ourselves, and that's really just because so many people teach us to second guess ourselves. I know it's it's not really a place of victimization, but it is truth. And I think once you are aware of that truth, then you have to be a little bit more accountable in your decision making and just what you believe, because it is definitely very common to say, oh, no, that's not really what it is. You know what I mean? And we're just taught that. And I think as women, even in our community, we do it to one another. So it's trust is just something that, it really just has to be within yourself. You know what I mean? It's kind of strength and confidence and all of those things. Those things are just things that are within you. You know what I mean? It's not really something that it's like you can have it, or you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like something you got to work at, so just kind of learning how to trust God. I think that's like the biggest thing. And just always getting understanding, you know what I mean? I feel like that's like the main thing too, like taking your time to get understanding in regards to something, but yeah, in regards to change, it's not easy, like I said all the time, but at the end of the day, I think sometimes change really is for the better. And it doesn't always have to mean that you were in a bad place. I think sometimes change looks like actually standing up for yourself and being more confident and relying more on your opinions and, you know what I mean? Like your factual and your intellectual reasoning rather than the other choices, you know what I mean, that you may have chosen in the past, because I think sometimes when it comes to trust, it's like we don't trust ourselves and we go against ourselves. And so that just, is projected outward, and that's kind of how we see the world. But yeah, man, don't let anybody dehumanize you or invalidate your feelings and how you feel. Like I said, I'm not really that type of person. Like if I really felt some type of way, then I felt some type of way. And my thing was always this: I validated myself in those instances oftentimes, because I'm like, well, you ain't coming to me telling me I made you feel some type of way. You know what I mean? Like you're not sending me the text. You're not pulling me aside saying, hey, Jalen, you made me feel this type of way. So why would I invalidate what I'm feeling when I don't do that to you? You ain't never did that to me. You know what I mean? So I think it just kind of comes to a point where you got to learn how to deal with people. You know what I mean? And I think I'm gonna title this one here, Change and Deception, because many people are deceptive and they really claim to be something that they're not. But, time will tell, and you just have to keep God close, when you're dealing with people, because, yeah, man, it's crazy out here. You know what I mean? But nonetheless, I think when it comes to people who don't understand you, don't ever change yourself. You know what I mean? Don't change yourself in a way that they understand you. You know what I mean? I've definitely learned that life is just really lived through an abundance of seasons. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a bunch of seasons. And you're going to have people who come in and out of your life. You're going to have experiences, and you're going to be grouped with people who just do not see eye to eye with you. And you know what I mean? They are who they are. But, there just comes a point where you got to be rooted in yourself, because I really do think that we seek comfort as humans. We seek solace. And so if I have to, I'm not going to say me particularly, but if, I'm somebody who I have no control in my life, or I don't feel like I have control in my life, or I've surrendered control in my life to the point where I just kind of let the river flow me down the stream, and I'm unhappy with the decisions and the choices that I've made, but I don't want to see it that way. I feel like life has just handed me a bad hand. So I personally feel like I have no control because I'm the victim, right? And I talked about that in the last episode, like the victim mentality and how people think around that. And so what happens is sometimes people who just don't have a clue about certain things, they don't have understanding, they don't lean to God, they just have no knowledge about certain things, they're not knowledgeable. What happens is they'll get into spaces where they can find somebody who they can control, or they want to control you because, my little pity party over here it's just not working. I can't control anything else in my life, but I can control you. You know what I mean? So it's like you just have to you got to be discerning. Like I can't stress that enough when you're dealing with people. Like it's just one of those things, so yeah, like I definitely think that some people will definitely step into that space where, they're trying to control you and they want you to be something that you're not, just so that they can feel comfortable. And, and that in those spaces, that's when you got to be strong and you got to be rooted in who you are. You know what I mean? Because people will try to, get you to mold and bend and break to fit to their, you know what I mean? To get you to do whatever that they want you to do, because they can't control nothing else in their lives. I think that's like really the only understanding of that. And I personally think that is probably the greatest weakness, you know what I mean, quite frankly. And I never really understood it, But yeah, you guys, don't try to change too much at once. I talked about that the last episode, and change definitely looks like many different things, you know what I mean? But one of the things that I will say that will never change is God. You know what I mean? God is the only person who will ever be consistent. And I'm never saying don't trust people in life. Like I said, that's just not a way to live. You got to change to some degree. But don't ever change yourself so much so that you're changing your inside. You know what I mean? You're changing the things about you. And I think that so many people have done that. And so they grow up, and this is where we have like this bitterness and this envy and this jealousy and all of this stuff that, is just, because people change. You have certain situations where you're willing to bend and mold to fit into, you know what I mean? And to me, I think that kind of just comes from a place of weakness and insecurity, quite frankly. I don't think that really comes from strength. You know what I mean? I think strength is gained from experience and from wisdom and from applying principles and from, you know what I mean? Like learning some hard lessons. You know what I mean? I think at that point, you are stronger, right? Because you've gone through some things. So mentally, you have the wherewithal to actually withstand it. Most people don't really go through much of anything. They take a couple blows and then they're pretty much done with it. You know what I mean? And then it's like, oh, then they want to come and tell you after they didn't, you know what I mean, mended and bolted and folded. Because here's the thing about life too, like it's all about seasons. You know what I mean? 110. And so if I don't want to change, if I don't want to grow and become better for this next season, then I'm going to like pretty much mend and like mold myself, you know what I mean, into something that I'm not, to kind of pretty much stay comfortable in the season. Does that make sense? It's almost like, when you're like a kid and you get older, you can't fit the same shoes, but you really love those shoes, so you're still wearing those shoes. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. You can't fit those anymore. That's not even where you should be, but you want to stay there because you're comfortable, So, and this podcast episode, like I said, it's just about trust. And at the end of the day, trust God. I definitely, like I said, you can trust others, but definitely when people show you like who they are, dust your feet, let your peace be returned onto you. You know what I mean? I definitely think for myself, as I get to understand myself, as I'm coming into, this new age, okay, I feel very connected to myself. And I think it's just one of those things to where it's like indescribable, but all-knowing at the same time. You know what I mean? And so at that point, you kind of get an understanding of who you are, you know what I mean, as a person. And it's not one of those things to where you're like, oh, this is just me and I'm never going to change. Absolutely not. I think what you have to understand is that when it comes to some people, you got to just take some things with a grain of salt. I remember being in a space where I was very low. I was at a very low point in my life. I was kind of insecure. And I mean, because you're finding your way. You're trying to figure things out for yourself, right? And I remember just really trying to be what other people wanted me to be, and I think even still there's always like, you always going to have a little bit of that, what do they say, like the age of 60? I don't know. But, really molding myself to be something that I wasn't for other people. And, just kind of trying to change and fit and adapt because everybody's saying this. They say, oh, everybody's saying it is true. I don't believe that. Because I've had experiences where I knew good and well that wasn't it. But because, you know what I mean? It's like, it's situational. But at the end of the day, you guys, it's necessary. But, see change in a positive light. Use change in your life to get stronger. Incorporating new habits to be stronger and to be better is great. Thinking positively and confidently in regards to your goals is great, especially when you've been thinking negatively about them. Like, just try to focus on the more positive change and don't be stuck into it. Don't be settled into a place of deception. You know what I mean? Because the truth will always be revealed, and that's just a waste of time, quite frankly. So, okay, you guys, I'm going to leave you guys with your thoughts, and I hope everybody had a great day.